Lyra belonged to a rare species known as the krylith. Her skin had a crystal blue glow. Her eyes were gentle like ice lakes, and cold mist always floated around her body. When she moved, the air became cool. When she was nervous, the mist became thicker, and tiny flakes of frost formed on nearby tables and chairs. Many students avoided her. They whispered to each other when she walked past. "She is dangerous," one said quietly. "Her cold can freeze anything," another replied. "I heard kryliths have no feelings," said a third student, sounding afraid. None of them truly knew her. They only saw the cold energy and believed the rumors. They never tried to talk to her. They never asked her how she felt. Lyra's footsteps echoed alone on the metallic floor. She held her books close to her chest. Her breath made a small cloud of freezing mist in front of her face. Her shoulders were always a little tense, as if she expected someone to whisper or step away from her. And they usually did. In the cafeteria, she sat at the corner of a long table near a window that showed the endless stars outside. She ate quietly, slowly, and carefully. When students walked by, they gave her nervous looks. Some even changed tables. Lyra pretended she did not notice. But she did. Her heart felt heavy, but she smiled softly at her plate so no one could see her sadness. She had always dreamed of friendship. But she learned to hide that dream deep inside, like a flower growing under ice. One evening, she walked alone back to her dorm. Her room was quiet, simple, and cold. Frost crystals decorated the walls like art. She sat at her desk and looked out into space. The stars twinkled softly like tiny lanterns trying to comfort her. "I wish I could talk to someone," she whispered. Her voice sounded lonely in the empty room. She touched her chest gently. The cold energy inside her felt restless. It wanted to connect with someone, but she did not know how. The next morning brought a surprise. News spread quickly around the academy. A new student had arrived. And not just any student, it was a human. Humans were rare in the academy. They were known across the galaxy for their strong will, emotional hearts, and surprising ability to connect with different alien species. Many students were excited to see this new arrival. His name was Evan Carter. Evan had short brown hair, warm green eyes, and a friendly smile. He wore the academy uniform proudly and carried a bag full of books. He looked around the halls with wonder. Everything was new to him. The floating robots, the glowing screens, the different alien faces, but he did not seem afraid. Lyra saw him for the first time while she was opening her locker. The hallway was noisy, busy, and full of curious students. Many followed Evan, asking questions and offering help. "What planet are you from? Do humans really explore space now? Are you scared of other species?" Evan answered politely, but he looked a little overwhelmed. He thanked students with quiet smiles and tried to walk carefully between them. Lyra listened silently. She felt something unusual. She did not know what it was yet. Later, during class, students searched for seats. Many chairs filled quickly, but one remained empty, next to Lyra. Normally, no one chose to sit beside her. But today, Evan walked in late, looked around, and then pointed to the empty seat next to her. "Is this seat free?" he asked politely. Lyra froze. Her heart jumped. "Yes," she whispered softly. "It is free." Students stopped talking. They stared with wide eyes. Their mouths hung open. They waited to see what would happen. Evan sat down calmly. Nothing happened. He did not freeze. He did not panic. He smiled at Lyra. "Hi, I'm Evan." Lyra blinked. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She felt nervous. A soft mist formed around her hands. She quickly hid them under the desk so he would not worry. I am Lyra," she finally replied. "Nice to meet you," he said warmly. For the first time, someone spoke to her without fear. The teacher began the lesson, talking about cosmic energy flows and how they powered ships and stations. Lyra listened carefully, taking neat notes. Evan tried to follow, but his eyebrows pressed together with confusion. He whispered quietly, What does gravitational energy alignment mean?" Lyra looked at his page. She pointed gently, careful not to get too close. "It means how space pulls objects and how ships adjust to move safely," she explained. "Oh," Evan whispered, nodding. "Thank you." Her heart warmed. The mist around her faded slightly. After class, Evan gathered his books and paused. "Lyra?" he asked softly. She looked up. "Thank you for helping me," he continued. "I really appreciate it." "You are welcome." Lyra replied shyly. You can ask me, anytime. Evan smiled again. Students continued whispering as he left. Lyra heard them. Why did he sit next to her? Humans are weird. He does not know what she is. Lyra lowered her head, feeling the old cold loneliness return. But somewhere deep inside her chest, a tiny spark of warmth remained. Because someone had been kind to her. Someone had talked to her. That night in her dorm, Lyra could not sleep. She sat by the window again, watching the stars. She thought about the moment Evan smiled at her, about the way he did not step away, about how he asked questions without fear. He did not think I was dangerous, she whispered to the stars. The next day in the cafeteria, something wonderful happened. Lyra sat at her usual lonely table. She picked up her spoon slowly. Students passed by, whispering as always. Then suddenly a tray slid onto the table in front of her. Lyra looked up and saw Evan standing there. Mind if I sit here? He asked. Lyra froze again. Her mist widened slightly. She looked around. Students stared in shock, but Evan's smile was gentle and calm. You can sit, she said quietly. Evan sat down, placed his food carefully, and asked, Why does everyone avoid you? Lyra looked at her hands. They were trembling. Because I am Krylith, she answered softly. My cold energy scares people. Evan nodded slowly. Is it dangerous? No, she said quickly. Only when I am angry or very sad. But I can control it. Then why are they scared? Lyra shook her head with a sad smile. Because they do not know me. Evan looked thoughtful. He took a bite of his food, then said honestly, I thought you were an icy creature when I first saw you. Lyra's eyes widened. She felt her heart drop. But, Evan continued, smiling kindly, now I see that you are just shy. You are peaceful. Lyra's eyes softened. The mist around her turned gentle. No one had ever said something like that to her. This station is cold, Evan said casually. Maybe it needs someone like you. Lyra gave a small laugh. It sounded soft but happy. Evan looked pleased. From that day on, they met in class, talked between lessons, and ate together during lunch. Lyra slowly opened her heart. She told him about the Krylith culture, how their emotions controlled their cold energy, and how she always dreamed of friendship. Evan listened carefully, always respecting her feelings. But not everyone approved of their new friendship. A tall student from the Dravik species named Torvax watched them with crossed arms. His eyes narrowed and he whispered to his friends, She does not belong here. Humans should not mix with Kryliths. His friends nodded quietly. Lyra did not notice. She was too happy talking with Evan. Every day the sadness inside her chest melted a little more. She smiled more often. She walked with her head up. She laughed softly at jokes. Students began to notice the change. Some grew curious. A few even waved at her, but many still watched from a distance, unsure and afraid. One evening, as she sat in her dorm, Lyra placed her hand on her chest again. But this time she felt something warm inside, like a tiny star burning gently. It feels nice, she whispered. She looked at the window. Stars shined brightly as if cheering for her. For the first time in years, she did not feel alone. She wondered what tomorrow would bring. And soon, she would discover that her friendship with a human was only the beginning of something much greater. A moment later, Evan entered the cafeteria with his usual friendly smile. Students pointed at him as he walked. Some waved. Others whispered to each other. But Evan only looked around once and headed straight toward Lyra's table. He sat down without hesitation. Good morning, he said kindly. Lyra blinked, surprised. Good morning, she answered softly. A nearby table went silent as students watched the two talk. No one had ever dared to sit so close to a Krylith before, but Evan seemed calm and comfortable. You were waiting? Evan asked. Lyra's cheeks cooled with pale blue color. Maybe a little. Evan laughed gently. I'm happy you waited. Lyra turned her eyes to her cup of warm tea. She lifted it carefully, trying to look calm. But her hands trembled slightly, creating tiny frost patterns on the cup. Evan noticed, but he did not pull away or look afraid. Instead, he placed his tray closer to her as if to show he trusted her. I heard Kryliths enjoy things that are cold, he said. Yes, Lyra replied. Warm drinks help control our energy. It keeps the mist soft. That explains the tea. Evan smiled. Students continued staring from across the room. Some whispered nervously, others whispering excitedly. Humans really are brave. He is not scared. They are actually talking. But Lyra tried to ignore them. She focused only on the human sitting beside her. During their next class, students studied energy manipulation. The teacher showed how different species could shape energy into shields or tools. Evan watched with awe as Lyra formed small crystal shapes with her cold energy. It was delicate and beautiful, like tiny blue diamonds floating in the air. "That's amazing," Evan whispered. Lyra blushed softly. "It is simple for Kryliths." "It's still beautiful," he replied. Lyra's heart skipped. Compliments were rare for her. She turned her eyes down shyly, and her cold mist grew faint and gentle, almost like glitter. Other students stared. Some admired. Some grew jealous. But one particular alien did not look pleased at all. Torvax, the tall Dravik student, glared from across the room. His dark green skin and large horns made him look intimidating. He whispered to his friends quietly, "That human thinks he can change rules. He should not sit with the Krylith." His friend agreed. "Kryliths do not care about feelings." "That girl will bring trouble," Torvax growled. But Lyra did not hear them. After class ended, Evan and Lyra walked together through the hallway. Lyra showed him the holographic library, the training arena, and the garden room filled with plants from across the galaxy. Evan listened, amazed. "You must know everything here," Evan smiled. Lyra shook her head gently. "I only know this because I had a lot of time alone." Evan paused. He looked serious for the first time. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said softly. Lyra's eyes widened. Her chest warmed. For a moment, the cold mist around her completely disappeared. Students watching from behind lockers looked shocked. It vanished. Her mist is gone. Maybe she really can control it. Lyra did not know this moment would change her life. Later, they sat in the academy garden. Trees whispered in the artificial breeze, and glowing flowers floated above the pond like tiny moons. Lyra felt peaceful here. "Lyra," Evan asked gently, "why do people keep distance? Do they really think Kryliths don't have feelings?" Lyra looked at her hands. "Long ago, Kryliths fought a great battle using cold energy. Some people think we are cold inside too, but we feel emotion strongly. When we are sad, our power grows. When we are angry, ice forms. When we are happy, the mist becomes brighter." Evan nodded slowly. "So emotions control your power?" "Yes," Lyra replied. "And that scares many." He thought about this. "Then maybe you just need someone who understands you." Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. "I never had that." "You do now," Evan answered. Lyra smiled softly, and tiny sparkles of ice danced in the air. A few days passed, and their friendship grew stronger. They sat together in every class. They ate lunch together. They studied after school. Lyra opened up slowly, telling stories about her planet, how everything glowed blue, how children learned to shape snow like art, how Krylith families hugged with gentle energy to keep each other warm. Evan laughed at her stories and shared his own about Earth, soccer games, rainstorms, trees changing color in autumn, and the funny way humans celebrated holidays. Lyra listened like she was hearing music. She imagined Earth's rain falling softly, washing away loneliness. She imagined green forests and colorful leaves. She imagined laughter without fear. One afternoon, they trained together in the energy arena. The teacher wanted students to practice shaping energy into shields. Lyra demonstrated first. She raised her hands and a beautiful ice shield formed, thin like glass yet strong like steel. It shined with soft blue light. Students gasped. The teacher clapped. "Excellent control, Lyra." Then it was Evan's turn. He tried to create a basic shield using his energy gloves, but nothing happened. He frowned and tried again. Sweat formed on his forehead. Lyra stepped beside him. "Close your eyes," she whispered. "Imagine something you want to protect." Evan breathed slowly. He imagined Earth. He imagined his sister smiling. He imagined Lyra alone in the cafeteria. Suddenly, a weak but visible shield formed around him. Students cheered. Evan opened his eyes in surprise. "I did it!" Lyra nodded proudly. "You see? You can," Evan laughed. "Only because you helped." Lyra felt proud. For the first time in her life, she was not just the cold girl in the corner. She was a teacher, a friend, but not everyone was happy about this change. After training, Torvax approached Evan in the hallway, blocking his path. His tall body towered over the human like a giant shadow. "You should stay away from her," Torvax growled. Evan frowned slightly. "Why? She does not belong with humans," Torvax replied. "Kryliths are dangerous. Cold energy can hurt others if she loses control." Evan stood firm, but his voice remained calm. "She has control. You saw it, and she is kind." Torvax's eyes narrowed. "Kindness means little in space. Power matters." "She used her power to protect," Evan replied. Students gathered to watch. Some whispered nervously. Others expected a fight, but Evan did not raise his hand. He only spoke with steady courage. "I will not avoid her." Torvax stepped closer, tension growing in the air. But before anything could happen, Lyra appeared behind the crowd. Her cold mist glowed bright. "What is happening?" she asked softly. Torvax looked at her, then looked away. "Nothing. Just advice." He walked off, leaving nervous whispers behind. Lyra looked at Evan with worried eyes. "He is right about one thing," she said quietly. "My power can be dangerous." Evan shook his head. "Power is dangerous when used wrong. But you never used yours to hurt anyone." Lyra's voice trembled. "But what if I lose control?" "Then I'll help you," Evan answered. Her eyes softened. She wanted to believe him. That night, Lyra sat on her bed thinking deeply. She opened her hand, and a small crystal of ice formed above her palm. It spun gently like a star. She watched it dissolve into mist. Control. She always feared losing it. But when she remembered Evan's smile, something strange happened. The cold inside her felt warm. The next days grew even more interesting. Some students began sitting near Lyra, curious about her power and personality. A shy alien girl asked her about Krylith customs. A small robot offered to help clean her table. The academy felt slightly warmer, but the universe was changing. Strange energy signals appeared on the academy, sensors, signals from something unknown approaching in the void. Teachers whispered among themselves. The defense systems powered up. Some students felt uneasy without knowing why. One night, Lyra sat by the window and stared at the stars. They shimmered like cold fire. She touched the glass with her fingers, leaving frost patterns shaped like flowers. Her heart beat quietly, but something in the darkness beyond the station felt wrong. She felt a chill, not from cold energy, but from fear. The next morning, alarms echoed through Astra 9. Red lights flashed in the halls. Robots hurried everywhere. Students gathered in panic. Evan rushed to find Lyra. "What's happening?" Lyra's eyes were wide. "Something is coming." And deep inside her chest, the cold energy stirred, not in fear, but in warning. The lonely, cold girl would soon face a threat greater than whispers and rumors. And this time, the whole academy might depend on her. Lyra walked alongside Evan, her hands still glowing softly with faint icy sparkles. Every step she took no longer felt heavy with loneliness. Instead, each step carried pride, courage, and a strange new warmth that came from knowing she had made a difference. "People are talking about you everywhere," Evan said gently. "Even the teachers can't stop smiling." Lyra looked down at her hands, watching the fading frost. I didn't think I could do it," she whispered. "You did," Evan replied. "You've always had this strength inside you." "I just reminded you." Lyra felt her chest warm. "Thank you for staying by my side." Evan smiled. "I will always stay." That evening, the academy held a small ceremony to honor the students who had bravely helped during the attack. Teachers, staff, and students crowded the hall. Lyra stood quietly near the front, feeling the weight of many eyes on her. She felt nervous, even though she had saved the station. Being at the center of attention was new to her. "Lyra of the Krylith species," the headmaster began, his voice echoing through the hall. "Today you have shown all of us the true meaning of courage, control, and friendship. Your actions remind us that strength is not only about power, it is about heart." Lyra felt her cold mist glow gently around her, a soft blue that no longer felt intimidating. Students whispered to each other, no longer afraid but in awe. "Thank you," Lyra said quietly, her voice steady. "I only did what I had to do. I could not have done it without friends who believed in me." Evan stepped beside her, offering a reassuring smile. Torvax stood behind them, still looking serious but slightly softer than before. For a moment, even he seemed to be inspired by Lyra's courage. After the ceremony, students approached Lyra slowly. Some were shy, their voices trembling. Others were bold, eager to ask questions. One by one, they said words she had longed to hear. "You are amazing. Thank you for saving us. Can you teach me how to control energy like you?" Lyra felt a warmth that had nothing to do with her Krylith energy. She realized something wonderful. She was no longer alone. People saw her not as an icy, distant creature, but as someone brave, kind, and worth knowing. That night, in her dorm room, Lyra could hardly sleep. She looked out the window at the stars, thinking about the day. The stars shimmered like tiny flames, reminding her of the faint warmth that had always existed inside her. She gently traced patterns in the frost on her window, creating flowers, stars, and hearts. Her heart felt light, happy, and peaceful. Evan knocked softly and entered her room. He carried 2 cups of warm tea, one for himself and one for her. "I thought you might like some," he said, setting the cups on her desk. "You've earned it." Lyra smiled, accepting the cup. "Thank you, Evan, for everything." "You don't need to thank me," he said, sitting beside her. "I just wanted to make sure you knew you're not alone." They sat together in quiet comfort. Lyra watched the steam rise from her tea. It reminded her that warmth and cold could exist together, balancing each other. She realized she had spent too many years thinking she had to be distant to be safe. Now she knew she could share her heart without fear. Days passed, and life at the academy began to settle back into routine, but it was never quite the same. Students treated Lyra differently now. They greeted her with smiles. They asked her questions about her species. Some even joined her and Evan in the garden to learn energy exercises. Even Torvax approached her one morning. His usual stern face softened. I was wrong about you," he said quietly. "I thought Kryliths were dangerous and humans were weak. I see now that I was wrong about both." Lyra nodded. "Thank you." "I forgive you," Torvax hesitated, then added, "You inspired me." Lyra smiled, feeling her chest warm. She realized that courage could change not only the world but hearts as well. The academy continued its normal lessons, but a sense of unity had grown stronger. Students from different species began to work together more, inspired by what they had witnessed. They began helping each other, sharing knowledge and learning to trust one another. One afternoon, Lyra and Evan sat in the floating library, reading about distant planets. A soft breeze from the garden floated in through open windows. The sun from a nearby star illuminated the shelves, making everything glow softly. "I never imagined I could feel so happy here," Lyra said. Evan nodded. "You've earned it." "You deserve it." Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining. "It feels strange. After years of being alone, to have someone care. It's like learning a new language." Evan chuckled softly. "Friendship is like that. It's a language everyone can learn even if it takes time." Lyra laughed, a sound like gentle wind through ice. "I think I'm ready to learn it fully now." Together they spent hours reading, discussing, and imagining new adventures. Lyra felt alive in a way she had never known before. The loneliness she had felt for years was slowly melting, replaced by warmth, trust, and hope. Weeks later, the academy leaders asked Lyra to participate in special missions exploring nearby star systems. She accepted, with Evan by her side. Torvax joined them sometimes, and other students who had learned to trust and believe in teamwork followed as well. Lyra's powers became stronger as she learned to control them even better. She could form icy shields, floating crystal platforms, and energy patterns that amazed everyone. But she always remembered Evan's words. Strength alone was not enough. Heart and courage mattered most. One evening, after returning from a small exploration mission, Lyra stood on the observation deck looking at the stars. Evan joined her, carrying a small holographic projector showing distant planets they had studied. "You've changed so much, Lyra," he said softly. "Not just your power, your courage, your heart. You inspire everyone." Lyra looked at the stars. "I changed because I finally learned I am not alone. Because someone believed in me," Evan smiled. "And I always will." A soft mist of blue sparkled around Lyra, gentle and warm. It was no longer frightening. It reflected her feelings, her trust, and her hope. Students passing by stopped to watch, no longer afraid but admiring the beauty of her energy. At the academy cafeteria the next morning, Lyra walked confidently through the crowd. Students waved, smiled, and asked her questions. She laughed and answered them warmly. She no longer hid in corners. She no longer felt lonely. Even Torvax gave her a nod of respect as she passed. The academy, once a place of fear and whispers for her, had become a home filled with friendship, trust, and admiration. Evan walked beside her, pointing to small stars visible through the windows. "Do you see them?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said softly. "They shine. Like hope. Just like you," Evan replied. Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that no cold mist could touch. She realized that even the coldest, loneliest heart could feel warmth when someone cared enough to reach out. And as the days continued, Lyra and Evan worked together to explore, learn, and protect the academy. They discovered new life forms, helped students from different planets work together, and strengthened bonds across the galaxy. Stories of Lyra's bravery spread beyond Astra 9. Young Krylith children on distant planets learned that courage and kindness were the greatest powers they could have. Humans and aliens alike told tales of the Krylith girl who once was lonely, but became a hero through heart, trust, and friendship. Lyra walked through the halls, head held high, smiling at students who waved and called her name. She no longer felt the cold isolation that had haunted her for years. She had friends, she had courage, and she had hope. For the first time in her life, Lyra realized, sometimes one human's kindness could melt even the coldest loneliness. And from that warmth, new legends could be born. Across the stars, the story of the lonely Krylith girl and the brave human would inspire many other friendships. Teamwork and courage for generations to come. Lyra looked at Evan. He smiled back. Together they faced the universe, not alone but united and ready for whatever adventures awaited them. The stars twinkled brightly, as if celebrating her journey. Lyra laughed softly. She no longer felt lonely. The lonely Krylith girl had finally found her place among the stars. And with that, a new chapter began. Lyra stood in the center of the hallway, frozen in place, feeling her cold energy tremble inside her chest. It reacted to fear like ice reacting to a sudden flame, sharply and dangerously. Evan rushed toward her, dodging panicking students. Breathing heavily, he grabbed her hand gently. "Lyra, are you okay?" I do not know," she whispered. Her voice trembled like thin ice. Cold mist swirled around her feet. They hurried toward the nearest viewing platform, following the flow of students. There, massive windows showed empty space outside, normally peaceful and silent. But today, something dark floated beyond the station. It looked like a giant shadow made of shifting energy. Tendrils of darkness drifted around its form, stretching and curling like smoke underwater. It had no solid body, only swirling black matter glowing with sickly violet light. The creature pulsed slowly as if breathing. Students gasped. Some stepped back. A few started to cry quietly. "What is that?" Evan whispered. Lyra's heart pounded. She knew what it was, not from books or lessons, but from Krylith memory stories passed down through generations. "It is a void wraith," she whispered. "A what?" Evan asked, eyes wide. "A creature of empty energy. It survives by draining life and power from anything it touches." As they watched, the creature stretched a tendril toward a nearby drone outside. The drone's lights flickered, then dimmed completely as the machine fell limp, silent and dead. Students flinched in fear. A teacher shouted, "Everyone to the emergency shelters! Move quickly!" Robots guided students down different hallways. Some cried. Others shook with panic. Evan pulled Lyra gently. "Come on!" But Lyra did not move. Her cold mist thickened around her feet, forming tiny frost cracks on the floor. "I have read old Krylith history," she whispered. "Only Krylith energy can freeze a void wraith." "What?" Evan said, confused. "It is our ancient duty. That is why my species once battled them long ago." Evan stared at her. "So you're saying only you can stop it?" Lyra hesitated, voice shaking. "Maybe not only me, but Krylith power is the only weapon that works." Evan squeezed her hand. "Then you can do it." Lyra's eyes lowered. "I am not strong enough." "Yes, you are," Evan said firmly. Lyra looked at her hands. Frost glittered between her fingers. "What if I lose control? What if I hurt someone?" she whispered. "You won't," Evan said. "I believe in you." Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. The mist calmed. Before she could speak, a loud voice boomed through the station speakers. "Emergency defense teams report to the main dock." Lyra looked toward Evan. "I must go." Evan nodded. Then I'm going with you. Lyra shook her head. No, it is too dangerous. Evan stepped closer. You said Krylith power reacts to emotions. If I'm with you, maybe I can help keep you calm. She looked into his gentle eyes, feeling her fear settle like snow falling softly. All right, she whispered. They hurried toward the main dock. Along the way, they met Torvax, the Dravik student who once challenged Evan. He looked angry, but not at them. He looked angry at the danger threatening their home. You two are going to face that thing? He asked. Lyra nodded quietly. Torvax clenched his fists. Then I'm coming too, Evan blinked. You want to help? Torvax sighed. I may not like humans or Kryliths, but Astra 9 is my home. I will not let it fall. Lyra smiled softly. Thank you. Together, they ran toward the dock. When they arrived, chaos filled the huge open room. Defense ships hovered near the ceiling. Energy shields flickered as pilots prepared for launch. Teachers controlled consoles, scanning the void wraith. One teacher gasped when she saw Lyra. You are Krylith, Lyra nodded. Yes. The teacher immediately stepped closer. We need your power. Can you create ice barriers in space? Lyra hesitated. I have never tried. But you must, the teacher pleaded. Evan touched her arm gently. You can do this, Lyra breathed deeply. Her mist grew brighter. I will try. They moved her to the airlock platform. Torvax and Evan stayed close, wearing emergency support suits. The suits helped regulate breathing and temperature in open environments. As the airlock opened, freezing space wind rushed in. Stars twinkled like cold diamonds. The void wraith drifted closer, its tendrils stretching toward the station. Lyra stepped forward onto a floating platform outside the dock. Frost formed under her feet, creating a path. Evan and Torvax followed carefully. Students and teachers watched from inside, holding their breath. Lyra raised her hands slowly. Blue light gathered around her palms, swirling like a storm of snowflakes. Ice crystals formed in the air, dancing in spirals. The void wraith screeched soundlessly, reacting to her energy. Lyra's voice was soft at first. Please work. Energy explosion. A large wave of ice shot from her palms, forming a massive shield between the station and the creature. The void wraith slammed into the ice, cracking it but slowing down. Students cheered inside. But the creature was strong. It pushed harder, causing fractures to spread across the ice shield. Lyra trembled, sweat forming on her forehead, freezing instantly. Her hands shook. Frost spread across her arms. I cannot hold it, she whispered. Yes, you can, Evan shouted. He placed his hand on her shoulder. His warmth flowed gently, calming her racing heart. The crack slowed. Torvax stepped behind her, bracing her with his strong arms. Use our strength too, Lyra gasped as she felt both support and courage melt her fear. Her cold energy swirled brighter than ever. Blue light exploded again. This time the ice shield grew thicker, sharper, and stronger. The void wraith screeched silently, pulling its tendrils back. Lyra closed her eyes, remembering ancient Krylith stories, heroes freezing darkness to protect the innocent. The ice shaped itself into massive spikes. They launched forward, striking the creature's core. The void wraith shook violently, its form flickering. More cracks spread through its dark body like fractured glass. Evan squeezed her hand. You're doing it! Lyra opened her eyes, glowing bright blue. With a final push, she formed a giant ice lance. The lance shimmered in space, sharp and pure. She threw it with all her strength. It pierced the void wraith's core. The creature shrieked, light flickering. Then, slowly, it dissolved into harmless dust, drifting across space like tiny stars. Silence fell. Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Her mist faded to soft sparkle. Inside the dock, students and teachers erupted into cheers. They shouted her name again and again, Lyra. Lyra! Lyra! Torvax smiled proudly. Evan knelt beside her, holding her hand gently. You saved everyone, he whispered. Lyra looked at him, tears forming. I did? Yes, Evan said softly. You did, he helped her stand. She swayed a little, but Torvax caught her, steadying her. You are stronger than rumors, he said quietly. Much stronger. Lyra smiled with tired joy. Her cold energy felt calm, peaceful. She turned toward the window and saw students pressing their hands against the glass, cheering. For the first time in her life, she was not feared. She was admired. Later, after the emergency ended, the leaders of Astra 9 held a meeting in the central hall. Students filled the seats. Lyra, Evan, and Torvak stood at the front. The headmaster spoke loudly. Thanks to Lyra's bravery and control, this academy still stands. We owe her our lives. Everyone cheered again. Lyra blushed softly, feeling warm even in her cold aura. Torvak stepped forward. I was wrong about you. I judged you without knowing you. Lyra nodded. I forgive you. Evan smiled proudly beside her. That night, Lyra returned to her dorm and sat by the window. Stars glowed softly outside. She touched the glass and drew a frost heart. She whispered, I am not alone anymore. And as she stared out into the peaceful dark, she felt something she had never known before. Belonging.